Hey everybody, welcome to week 5. I have a special tour for you because as you can see, I'm in the car. There's just so much to see. We're gonna do drive-bys this week just so I'm not standing outside of someone's house looking extra creepy. And so thanks to John, my pilot, my co-pilot.
Drive-by filming,
right? We're in the Charger. We're in a neighborhood.
Not to be confused with other drive-bys.
Yeah, not that drive-by. Yeah, just film drive-by. We're in a neighborhood just south of where we live here in South City, and the first neighborhood we're going to take you to is the German Enclave. So I know in the Midwest today in 2020 we assume all Germans were farmers. Yes, there were German farmers, but there was also a lot of German craftsmen and brewers and bakers and butchers and bricklayers and even scholars and doctors, because Germans, when they come in the 50s, the 1850s, they come with money. So these men and women and children are going to have money. So when they come over, they actually come through New Orleans, and they hate slavery. They're abolitionists. They say, we want nothing to do with slavery. We're going to go settle in free states like Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Ohio. Now they actually do come to St. Louis, and in St. Louis, right by the Mississippi River, almost like exactly maybe like 2 miles south of where we were yesterday at the Lewis and Clark statue, Germans are going to settle, and they're going to build their brick houses, and they are going to set up their breweries and their workshops, and they are going to thrive in St. Louis. And so we are now in one of the German enclaves, which is known as, it's kind of in between Dutchtown, known as Deutschtown for the Germans, and Benton Park. And so I'm going to kind of now take the camera away from me and show you some of the brick homes that Germans come and construct. So you can see these are very large 3,000 square feet homes that are built by Germans in the 1850s, and then in the 1890s and around the turn of the 20th century in the year 1900, Germans will give some of these houses an upgrade and even put, oh, what is it?
Do you want me to go this way?
Oh, is this Lemp? Go past the Lemp Brewery. So yeah, so these, as you can see, they get kind of a facelift. Okay, so here's one of our first breweries. This is called Bluewood Brewing. It's relatively new, but then right here is the Lemp Brewery. And so the Lemp family was very successful in building this massive complex, as you see, for producing German beer and selling it all throughout the Midwest. And so this is called the Lemp Brewery, and then we'll show you where they lived in just a second. This is their whole kind of complex. And so this is one of the mansions here, the DeMental Mansion, which is quite pretty. A French family, actually. And then the Lemp family and their mansion. So you can see this German brewing family was able to accumulate a lot of wealth in order to have their successful brewing company and also still have it thriving today. And if you look across the highway, that is, yes, the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. So another famous German family who comes, sets up their beer empire, and now their descendants are multi-millionaires, right? Because of the Busch family success in St. Louis. And so we are in kind of that German enclave. Oh, that's a nice rooftop deck. And so you can see kind of the historic features of these houses. As I said, yeah, we'll go right. They kind of had this facelift happen in the 1900s, and the success of the German neighborhoods as wealth and economic success and kind of in terms of religion, there's Lutheran churches, there's Catholic churches. There were a few Jewish synagogues. Damn. That guy just ran a stop sign. And so Germans are very diverse in their religion, and they are diverse in what they do for a living, but they are anti-slavery and settle in St. Louis in order to kind of tip the balance in keeping Missouri in the Union. When states secede to the Confederacy, Missouri will stay, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And so as you can see, these very large brick homes, and the historic appeal today is we see a lot of people coming to live in these neighborhoods because of the rich history. And will you go across to AB, like in front of it? And there is Benton Park. I'll actually be taking you there next week to talk about somebody who that park in this neighborhood is named for. But for now, we'll just continue throughout the neighborhood. And so John's going to take us over to Soulard, where it was actually a French neighborhood, but when Germans come over, they kind of take it over too. And we'll show you Anheuser-Busch up close if you've never been there. But that's also a great place to go and take your family for a tour. You see the Clydesdales, you see how the beer's made, you get a free sample. It's pretty cool. And so yes, the one thing that kind of links this neighborhood is the red brick homes, and it's because of the German skills with the bricks. The bricks were actually made in St. Louis and shipped all up and down the Mississippi, but they were used right here. And we live in a red brick home, and we're always like, I can't believe people made these things without trucks and lifts and all kind of equipment that we have today, because these are hand laid bricks, right? It's just crazy to think people did this. And today it's 91 degrees out, and I couldn't imagine doing this without air conditioning. And yes, and so here is our back entrance approach to Anheuser-Busch, which is going to, again, kind of show the German beer empire. There's also the Schlafly, Urban Chestnut, several breweries. And so if you haven't been here, it's really cool to come and remember the history of German immigrants coming. And of course, when we think of beer, a lot of times we think Bud Light is the American drink, right? We drink it at baseball games, we drink it at 4th of July, but we actually kind of borrowed it from Germans. And so for Germans, we take a lot of things that we like and we make it our own as Americans. And so here's kind of the front entrance to Anheuser-Busch. And when we go to Dogtown later and see the Irish Enclave, we'll see the difference of how Irish came over and took working class positions. Germans came over and took white collar positions. And so skilled labor, Irish come over very poor and unskilled. Germans come over with money as skilled laborers. They get to pick where they live. They build and own their own homes, which they pass on to their families. And thus we can see that the wealth in St. Louis of German Americans all begins here along the river. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but if we follow the street, we would eventually go into the river in about a mile. So Anheuser-Busch is right along the banks of the Mississippi. And so they could sell their beer all throughout the Midwest and up and down the Mississippi. And so yeah, now we're actually in Soulard, which was named for the French who lived here first. But as I said, Germans will kind of take over when they come to St. Louis in the mid-19th century and hold these homes in this land and develop these communities for their children who would become educated and kind of really show the American dream in terms of, oh, and there you kind of see the arch in the distance where we were last week. But that's kind of the German-American landing point when they come in the 1850s, and it's going to be a lot different for our Irish who live in New York, Philly, Boston, on the East Coast, living in apartment buildings, working for other people, working for daily wages. And Germans, as you can see, because they came with money, because they were abolitionists and educated and had skills, are going to have a pretty good job, or do a pretty good job of being kind of this successful minority. However, it doesn't keep them from criticism. Because they are successful, they're viewed as standoffish and clannish. And unfortunately, when Germans, when we begin fighting Germany in World War I, Germans still speak German. They have services in Lutheran, or in Lutheran churches. They're still in German. And so Germans are not going to need to assimilate until World War I, when they feel they need to. So they'll change their names from Schmidt to Smith and Mueller to Miller in order to fit in and Americanize themselves, so they're not seen as traitors or spies to our German enemies. And so even if you think Germans are white and rich and successful, they probably never experienced any discrimination. They did. And unfortunately, that's how it usually is for any newcomer when we don't understand language or culture, regardless of race or money. But obviously, those who are a lighter phenotype have it easier, and they can assimilate quicker by just changing their names. So yeah, I think that's it. Anything else, John?
Nope, I think you covered it all.
Okay, good. So I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed the auto tour of our immigrant neighborhoods in South City, St. Louis. And if you ever get a chance to come down here, let me know. I will give you tips on where to go. That was a nice car. And I'm going to stop it here and then restart it when we take you over to Dogtown for the Irish Enclave. So I'll see you in just a second, and you guys can click on part 2, and I'll show you where the Irish live. All right, thanks y'all. See you soon.